Hi guys, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to be telling you about the murder of Kelly Ann Bates. So without further ado, let's get into the video. It was an April afternoon in 1996 when a man walked into a police station in Manchester, England. And this man was oddly calm considering the fact that he is there to report the accidental bathtub drowning of his girlfriend. Now, Kelly Ann Bates was known to be a little mature for her age. And one source I read said that she wanted to be a teacher when she got older, and she loved playing sports growing up. And it was at 14 years old when Kelly told her parents that she had a boyfriend. And they didn't really think much of it. They thought she just had a cute little teenage crush on a boy at school, and they wanted their kids to have a sense of independence. So she was able to see her boyfriend as she pleased. Apparently, they met when she was babysitting for one of his friends, and supposedly he walked her home to keep her safe that night. So eventually, after Kelly has started hanging out with this guy, she starts to stay out overnight more often, and her parents started getting a little worried. And once Kelly finally came home, she said that she was just staying at a friend's house, but her parents had a gut feeling that this wasn't true. And although they've never met this Dave guy, he would call them to ask where Kelly was, quite frequently. It took about 2 years for Margaret and Tommy to finally meet Dave. And it kind of took Margaret by surprise a little bit because she got home to her house in Hattersley, England, and Kelly was there standing in the kitchen. And then in walks James Patterson Smith. James Patterson Smith was an unemployed, divorced man, and acquaintances would describe him as well-groomed and house-proud. He supposedly did not smoke or drink, and his marriage ended in 1980 after 10 years because he had been violent towards her. Then, between the years of 1980 and 1982, he got into a relationship with 20-year-old Tina Watson. Apparently, James would use Tina as a punching bag, and one source I read even said that this happened while she was pregnant with his child. Tina herself even said that it started off occasionally and then it got more and more frequent to the point where it was constant abuse. He'd smack her in the face, he'd hit her over the head with an ashtray, he would kick in her legs and then kick in between her legs, and he also tried drowning her while she was bathing. And thank goodness she was able to get out of this relationship. After that, he started seeing 15-year-old Wendy Mothershead. And once again, this girl was abused. And in one instance, he held her head underwater, attempting to drown her. So when James walked into the kitchen to meet with Kelly and her mother, Margaret was shocked. This was not just a young schoolboy who went to school with her daughter. This was a 48-year-old man, older than Kelly's father. Now, obviously, no parent wants their young child dating somebody significantly older than them, but to Margaret, this was deeper. She felt like something was very disturbing about this man. Not long after the meeting in the kitchen, Kelly broke the news to her parents that she was dropping out of school and moving in with James. And they were livid, but they really couldn't do anything about it. She was a teenager. She was going to do what she wanted to do. So they made an agreement that she would just stay in constant contact. They also contacted social services and the police to see if there's anything they could possibly do. But I guess in England, 16 years old is kind of considered an adult and a consensual age. So there was nothing they could do about it. Now, Kelly might have been mature for her age, but she was naive. She loved that there was a man interested in her that was so much older than her. And she really didn't realize that this relationship was not about love, it was about control and power. Kelly's demeanor slowly changed. She was no longer the bubbly, happy, cheerful girl that her mother knew. And they started seeing a lot less of her as time went on. When she finally did show back up to her parents' house, she seemed very depressed and distraught, but she refused that anything was wrong. And her mother noticed that she had bruises on her arms and her face, and one day she even came home to one side of her face completely black. Now, Kelly said that she was jumped and a group of girls beat her up, but more and more injuries started appearing, and Kelly's story kept changing. Now, obviously, this family didn't know that Dave was actually James Patterson Smith, and that means they also didn't know that Smith had a long history of violence towards women. Now, after seeing all these marks and bruises on her daughter, Margaret went to the police and insisted that a doctor check her out and document this abuse. But once again, Kelly was considered an adult, so she would have to go herself. Then one day, Margaret noticed a bite mark on Kelly's arm, and her excuse was that she fell and caught it on a chain link fence. Margaret obviously didn't buy that story, and she begged Kelly, please leave this man. And Kelly got mad, and she said, you are going to be seeing less of me. Over the phone, Kelly and Margaret would talk, and Kelly would tell her that she was working long hours and weekends at a factory. So that's why she hadn't made time to stop by and visit her parents. And then eventually the phone calls just stopped altogether. And over this time frame, they would still get cards for holidays like Mother's Day and their birthdays and Christmas. But first of all, they knew it was not Kelly's handwriting, and Kelly had not even signed it. Smith was the one signing all of these cards. And the family kind of thought that he was like teasing them and toying with them. And honestly, that was just his way of having more control over the relationship. So this brings us back to that day in April of 1996 when James walked into the police station to report the drowning of his girlfriend. Now, I'm going to put another trigger warning here. I'll put a timestamp in the corner. Skip to that time in the video if you were a little more triggered by certain topics about abuse, because some of this stuff does get kind of graphic. I want to make it known that it is definitely a little more graphic and gruesome than some of the other cases I've covered in the past. When police arrived, the scene was a lot more horrific than just a drowning. And 17-year-old Kelly Ann Bates was held prisoner and tortured for 3 weeks. Now, James supposedly told the police that she had inhaled a lot of water and he was unable to resuscitate her. They found Kelly's naked body, and as the investigation started, they found her blood in every single room of that house. The pathologist found around 150 separate injuries prolonged over a period of time. She was kept bound. She was tied to a radiator by her hair at times. Her eyes were gouged out, which happened at least a week before her death. She had stab wounds inside of her eye sockets. She was mutilated in the face, the mouth, her ears, nose, genitalia. She was scalded with boiling water and burned with a hot iron. She had been stabbed with knives, forks, scissors, pruning shears, and her head was partially scalped. Her knees had also been kicked in, and she had not had water for days. She was also being starved. She had lost 45 pounds. A few sources also said that she was beat over the head with a shower head right before her death. At trial, Smith denied the murder charges, and he claimed that he was totally justified in his actions. He said, "She put me through hell, winding me up," and then also claimed that she had a habit of hurting herself to make it look bad on him. He claimed that she taunted him about the death of his mother, and when he was asked why he gouged out her eyes, he said that she dared him to do it. The other victims of his abuse came forward to testify against him, and it took the jury a maximum of 1 hour to come up with a guilty verdict. James Patterson Smith was sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in prison, and at the trial, the evidence and photos presented were so horrific that the jury was offered psychological counseling afterwards, and every single person accepted. I think if I remember correctly, it was consisting of 7 men and 5 women, if I remember correctly. And all of them accepted this help because of the fact that it was just so gruesome and horrific and brutal and tragic. A consultant psychiatrist told the court that Smith had a severe paranoid disorder with morbid jealousy and lived in a distorted reality. Now, Margaret is left to wonder if she has some kind of sixth sense. She said that when she first met Smith, the hair stood up on the back of her neck and she had a random urge to just grab a kitchen knife and start stabbing him. She had never had those thoughts before. Kelly's funeral took place the day before her 18th birthday. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. I don't really care. Subscribe if you're new. Comment down below videos you would like to see next. Let me know what you guys thought on this case. I just could not believe what I was reading, and I just cannot imagine that experience and going through that in any capacity, being the victim, being a previous victim that could have been in her position, being the parents of the victims. Like, I just cannot fathom going through that in any capacity. And the torture is just heartbreaking. So let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!